Hey guys, welcome back to more neighbor stories. In this video, a neighbor goes crazy because I refused to sell my farm property to him. Here is what happened. Let's dive right into the story. For the past 5 generations in my family, a farm has been passed down, and for the past 10 years, it has been under my ownership. My parents moved away, still close to a home which was more suited to a slow life. They visit often, but most of the responsibility of the farm is on my shoulders. I am proud of my farm, I work on it religiously and ensure that everything we produce is up to the highest quality it can be. The organic produce is arguably what attracts most of my customers. We prove that we provide the freshest and least chemically influenced products in a long radius surrounding it. So most of the locals in the nearby villages come to our farm shop or seek us out when we attend their farmers markets. I've also begun shipping products out, which has allowed me to turn this farm into my full-time job. What I'm trying to say is, this farm is my life. Emotionally, it is my family, it is our sole heirloom and one which I intend to pass down to my children when I have them. Financially, it is all I have and it's all I need. Around 2 years ago, the plot of land across from mine was sold. The land was perfect for farming, the grass fertile and sun unobstructed. So why the owner decided to dig it all up and replace the entire grass with concrete is beyond me. Slowly, said neighbor has begun building houses on the property. It is what he wants to do, so I guess it's fine, but the real issue is what he did next. Hey, long time no see! Tom, my neighbor, called as he walked past my land. It was true, we had not spoken in a while. Hey Tom, how are you? It's important to note for the first year and a half of Tom living here, we have had no issue. Yeah, I'm good. Say, I have a question for you. Yeah, what's up? Let me just add in here that recently some others in our town have been speaking out about Tom and they were mentioning things about him, making them offers and becoming hostile with them. I was just wondering if I could buy your land, he asked, shrugging his shoulders. Sorry, what? I choked. Yes, I will give you, let's just say, $20,000 for it, he stated as he began getting a checkbook out of his pocket. You gotta be joking. Well, I cannot just leave you with nothing, can I? Who should I make this out to? Sorry, but I'm not selling my land, I stated. I couldn't believe this. What? He asked scarily, quietly. It is not for sale, I'm sorry. This land has been in my family for generations and it's my whole life. You cannot just say no, he shouted. You're lucky I'm even offering you anything. For that, the price is not $15,000. Take it or leave it. Well then, leave it. No, you cannot say no to my offer. This land is not worth anything. Be grateful that I want it. Well, this land is worth around 300k on its own and the house is worth more. But other than your incredibly low and inaccurate pricing, I just don't want to sell. This argument went back and forth for the next hour easily. I have no idea where this was coming from and I was getting very agitated, so were my goats who were not restless and waiting to be fed. Why do you even want the land? Because I'm gonna build a new mansion on it to live in, while I rent the houses over there, he pointed to his property. I shook my head. This is all insane, and what are you planning on doing with my animals? Well, I assumed you will take them with you. You've really thought this all through, haven't you? I asked sarcastically. Yes, now you understand. I've been planning this for the past week. Oh wow, now that is not such a long time. After a bit more back and forth, Tom eventually stormed off, explaining to me that he will most certainly not be dropping the subject. This next day he was back and we had the same argument again. He threw in some extra insults, claiming I was just a farmer, not a very good one, and don't need all that land. The week following, each day Tom would come over claiming he was running out of time and needed the land quickly. He would call me all sorts of names, belittle me at any chance and make sure I felt worthless. Next week there was silence, which weirdly felt even worse than the one before, and at the end of that week I woke up one morning to see spray paint all over my house. There was a mixture of rude gestures, slurs, all sorts. The main text stated "sell", so it was obvious who it was from. At this point I was getting a little scared things were gonna escalate, so I took photos of all the vandalism before cleaning it just in case I needed some proof later. I was right, things did start to get worse. I would come home after the farmer's market to find one of Tom's trucks sat in my driveway, making me unable to drive in. I would have to park around the corner and slowly bring everything inside, all the while he walked next to me and shouted at me. It was just horrible. He was an adult bully basically. Tom, just stop, this is ridiculous. I'm not gonna sell my property and you're being childish in your ways of attempting to get me to crumble. I shouted as he walked back to my car with me once more. I'm not gonna stop until you agree to selling your land and admit that it's more worthy in my hands. What does that even mean? I sighed. I was really getting sick of this man. He did not reply, only continued to harass me until I had fully unloaded my car and slammed my house door in his face. He shouted and banged on the door for another while before eventually storming off. Good riddance. The following afternoon, I felt a stern knock on my door and opened it to 2 officers. "Hello?" I asked. "Good day, we are here in response to several complaints coming from one address regarding noise at this address. We have been made aware that you are having several parties nearly every night and creating disrupting noise. We also received a tip-off that you were selling drugs at these parties. May we come inside to carry out our investigation?" I was stunned and obviously knew who this had all come from. I let them inside, by the way, big mistake, and allowed them to walk around and look over whatever they wanted. They could clearly see that everything was just lies. And by the way, Ripe Stars, I think OP made really a big mistake here. Would you let police officers into your property if they don't have a search warrant? Either way, after apologizing, the officers asked about my neighbor, admitting that it was him who had filed the complaints. They were curious as to whether there was some agitation going on here. So I decided I would just spill everything then and there, and if he wanted to call the cops, then I might as well take advantage of it. The officers advised that I begin to keep a record of everything he was doing, and then if I wanted to, I could come down to the station and make a more official report and get an investigation started. I decided to leave making an official report for the time being, wondering if Tom would calm down. However, he didn't. In the morning, clearly from his anger at losing this police situation, Tom stormed over to my land, jumped over my fences and opened the pens for all of my animals. I woke up to the noise and got there just as the last of them ran into the roads. It was chaos, animals everywhere, drivers angry and locals curious. The locals did help me get them back in the pens and thankfully no animals were injured. Tom just stood there and laughed. Seeing the laughter, the locals berated him and began asking me what had been happening. I told them everything. I didn't care about his reputation, and they shared similar stories of harassment after they rejected similar offers. At least people were on my side. "I won't stop until I have this land," Tom screamed as I walked into my house. "Listen, you're not getting this land, do you understand this? If you go any further, I am going to the police," I yelled, feeling my face go red as I stared at this insolent man. Tom just laughed right in my face. I remember going still as I stared at him, watching as he laughed, doubling over as if he had called my bluff. That is when I knew what I had to do. I was not just going over to the police, I was gonna go to them with an arm full of evidence. I went inside my home and immediately ordered some surveillance cameras, installing them the next day around my property. At the same time, I headed over to the homes of the locals who had claimed to also have a similar experience with Tom, asking them if they would be willing to speak to the police as a testimony to what I was saying. Most of them agreed as they were still being harassed themselves, though none as harshly as I was. Over the next week I recorded everything my neighbor was doing. I watched through my cameras as he spray painted my house once more, he damaged my fence and spat on my lawn. I did some digging too and found that these houses he's renting are a very far stretch from legal and that he even operates an illegal online gambling site. How random is that? So while my neighbor was blissfully attempting to destroy my life, I was collecting as much evidence as I could on him. When I knew I had sufficient evidence, I headed to the police station and filed the report. I handed over absolutely everything I had, evidence of the harassment, vandalism, threats, names and numbers of people with similar issues. On top of that, I handed over the research I had done into his illegal dealings. I was at this station for a while, sorting everything out and making sure that they had the correct information. I also filed for a restraining order. A week later I heard commotion outside and saw him being dragged away from his home and shoved in a police car. I ran outside and he screamed, "Him! He's the one who has done all of this!" pointing across the road at me. I just shook my head with a smirk as the officers continued to force him into the car. "You cannot do this! That man is a disgrace! He stole my land and he won't give it to me!" "Get in the car," the officer stated, slamming the door once he was in. I ended up getting all the money plus the restraining order. However, that wouldn't really be necessary because as it turns out he was much more of a shady man than I thought and this gambling business was actually a serious scam. He was put in prison for 10 years and hopefully when he comes out he won't move back to my area as thankfully someone has bought his old land. On a positive side note, my business has boomed because of all of this. The locals are even more pleased to do business with me now and my orders from further away have increased upon hearing my story. And yeah guys, if you enjoy these farmer stories, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel because it would be very much appreciated. The next one is a super satisfying malicious compliance story. So in reviewing some of my best memories of the last 2 years, I remembered an incident of malicious compliance that I found overwhelmingly satisfying and thought it would be worth sharing. While not as outrageous as some of the stories here, it left me feeling like I stuck it to our corporate overlords a bit. To set the stage, I moved back to the US to take a job at a pretty big firm where I was also tasked with executive assistant responsibilities. My boss would regularly send me downstairs to our local bank to pick up and deposit cash. Having newly moved back to the US, I needed to set up a bank account for direct deposits and figured the one downstairs makes sense. Also, it made depositing paychecks quicker and easier. On the day I went to open the account, the manager of the branch sat me down to go through all the paperwork. She was nice enough at first and I got through everything quite quickly. That being said, when it came to the signuate portion, and by the way, I'm not sure what signuate means, I guess you mean signature, I thought I would have a bit of fun with it and create a silly signature, having just watched a Roman documentary the night before. I made my signature Condiments the Great. Obviously, I used my first name in place of Condiments. The manager did not bat an eye at this, assuming she didn't read it, and said that she would process everything and give me a call when my card is ready to collect. Cut to a little later, I receive a call from the manager saying that there's something wrong with the paperwork and I needed to come down to correct it. When I ask what the problem is, she says that I'm not allowed to have a signature like that and I need to redo it using my actual name. I say okay and that I'll be right down. This kind of pissed me off though, because I've seen wild signatures that hardly resemble letters, yet they were still accepted. I did some quick research and found that legally, a signature can be any mark that I plan on using consistently. It didn't have to be a name nor even resemble letters. Being bored that day, I decided to press it and print out the laws regarding signatures and bring them with me to the bank. When I met the manager, I told her that I would actually like to keep the signature as is and provide her with the documents I printed outlining the law. She didn't seem enthusiastic at all and said that she would need a moment to discuss with her superiors. A few minutes later she comes back and says, while I'm correct about the law, they require the signature to match the one on my driver's license, since that is the one currently associated with me. I pushed back and mentioned that I wanted to have a new signature, but she was firm on it matching my ID or they would not open my account. Cue the malicious compliance. I realized then that since the state I moved to was different from the one I lived in before, I had to legally update my license, so I told the manager that I would think it over and get back to her soon. I hurried upstairs and made a DMV appointment for later that week to get a new license. The day of the DMV appointment, I brought everything I needed to ensure I walked out with a new license. When it was time for me to provide a signature for the license, I again wrote Condiments the Great and was again met with pushback. The teller literally said, "Sir, this is the DMV and we don't play games like that." Well, I whipped out the law to show them that I'm actually allowed to use this as my signature and the teller's ego deflated real fast. Long story short, I walked out that day with a shiny new license and my new signature. I drove directly from the DMV back to the bank and met with the teller. I told her that I will agree to sign the documents using the same signature on my license. I don't think she could have looked any more smug. She took me back to the office and sat me down to re-sign the documents, and I did so as Condiments the Great. When she saw this, she practically started shouting about how I am wasting their time and either need to get serious or they will have me escorted out. This is when I slowly removed my brand new ID and slid it across the desk. Her face went blank and I honestly couldn't tell what she was thinking. She asked me to leave the office for a moment so she could make a call. 10 minutes later she comes out and says, while my signature does match the one on my license, they are just refusing to do business with me and asked me to leave. Not knowing the legality of that, I said okay and accepted defeat. I walked back up to my office and told the boss that they're not allowing me to open an account. I told him the full story and he actually found it hilarious. He then said that he would handle it. Later that day, I received a call from the bank saying that they changed their mind and that they've opened the checking and savings account I requested. I went to speak with my boss after, who said that he had a productive chat with the manager. Knowing how much business he provides the bank, he was happy enough to bluff on my behalf. He essentially told the manager that not allowing me to open an account was directly affecting his business, and that if they don't oblige, he would close his accounts and take his business elsewhere. Apparently that threat hit hard and the manager quickly backtracked, saying that they never refused my business. just that they had to get approval from upper management. At the end of the day, I was victorious and still use this signature on all official documents. It's a bit silly, but it's my trophy and a good conversation starter. Anyway, the next one is titled, I had to break up with my SO because of his insane family. So I don't think I can marry him because of his family. I know people will say that I'm crazy, but my gut tells me that I am right. So this was supposed to be the first time I'm meeting his parents. He has 2 sisters, mom and dad, and I was excited to meet my future in-laws. However, it shattered. Few days ago, I met his family. Some things about them just didn't sit right with me. His mom is very possessive about him, like the first thing she said when she saw me was, so you're the lady that keeps my son busy. I know it sounds like a joke, but she said it in a condescending tone. Throughout the entire gathering, she was trying to avoid me. She would get irritated whenever I got closer to my fiancé. She made one very mean comment when I asked her for a piece of pie that she made. She said I'll not be able to fit in my dress if I eat any more of it. She deliberately made me sit far away from him so that she could sit beside him. I knew she did not like me, but I tolerated that. However, she was way too harsh on her oldest daughter. She keeps making comments like, when you're getting married and if she still cannot get over Ben, her brother-in-law. The thing is, Mia, the oldest daughter, used to date Ben until he dumped her to be with the younger sister Jen. Jen is not very nice either. She was mean to Mia and kept bugging her to get a husband. Mia is 33, I don't think she needs to rush. Jen also didn't like me because she made some snide remarks about my upbringing. I grew up in an abusive household. I had to struggle a lot, whereas my fiancé came from a well-to-do family. His dad did not speak much, he did not say anything and just nodded. The only normal person there was Mia because she just kept to herself, but nonetheless, I did not feel very welcome by them. I just had this gut feeling that if I get married, this will be my whole life. I would always have to be in competition with his mother, but he is so nice and sweet. I never felt so in love with anyone like I did with him. He brings me flowers, he takes care of me, he treats me like a queen. However, I don't like his family at all. I broke it off with him, he was understandably sad and he asked for a reason. I just told him I did not feel good about our relationship, that we are not compatible. There were tears, but I left. Now I'm sitting in my aunt's house writing this. One moment I felt like calling him and telling him I had cold feet, that we are perfect together. We earn well, we have similar hobbies and we are sexually compatible, but this one thing about him just bugs me a lot. I'm heartbroken, I don't deserve to be because I was the one who called it off. Update to the story, I just talked to his sister Mia on the phone. It was a surprise to me that she wanted to talk and she got the news of us breaking up and asked if we could talk on the phone. I agreed, I was desperate to hear any news from him. We talked for like an hour or so. It was mostly her telling me how her family was toxic, that I made the right decision because her mom had a weird obsession with her baby boy. Also, she does not know why she is the black sheep of her family. She was not adopted nor was she an affair child, and she also mentioned her mother was a bit of a racist because of where I came from. Overall, that day she wanted to warn me. I asked why my ex doesn't treat her right. She said my ex is in delusion that they have a picture-perfect home, but he doesn't realize how toxic his mom is. She did bring it up with him and he just said that they are family, so families should not hold grudges. Honestly, I felt bad for her. She also said she'll be going no contact with her family. She thought she could salvage their relationship and let them be a part of her life, but she decided she doesn't want that. Also, she shared some personal info about her relationship status and future, but I don't want to share that here. It's not my place to share it, but she told me to meet him and tell him the truth. He deserves to know why I don't want to be part of his family. He needs to hear the truth and I'll be meeting him tomorrow. And yeah, as a lot of you guys requested, I will give another update. Now we got another update and it reads, I tried to update but it got removed, so to those who made concern. I told him everything that I mentioned in the post and also about my feelings for his family, especially how they had treated Mia. Needless to say, he was upset and he tried to convince me that this is all in my head, that I shouldn't throw away our relationship because of his family will accept me if I become a part of it. I tried to explain things from my own perspective, but he was not budging. Then the topic of Mia came. He said it's unfair that even his sister is abandoning the family. He mentioned Mia's big news and she said she doesn't want to be a part of their family. I told him I knew about it because I talked to Mia. That seemed to upset him even more. He was pissed that Mia shared her news to me before his family. I got angry and told him this is exactly why I don't want to be a part of his family. Her mother made racist comments to me. I am half Bengali. His mom treated me like an outsider and did not make me feel welcome. His family is super toxic, I grew up in a toxic family too, and I don't want to die in one. Maybe someday he will find a woman his mother approves of, but that woman is not me. We had a big fight and he was obviously defending his family. He was not willing to listen to what I had to say. Overall, he was very dismissive. We ended the conversation in a very bad note. I'm sad about it. Aside from his family drama, he was a good guy. I don't think I can handle his family though, because you don't just marry one person, you marry the entire family, and they did not even bother to know me at all. So that's the update. And here, ripe stars, let me know what you think about this in the comments. I would say OP certainly dodged a bullet, and she is not completely wrong with what she said in the end. I hope OP finds a more suitable relationship in the future, and I hope that in that relationship the family will accept her as well. And before we end the video, we will read one funny story from r/petty revenge that you don't want to miss. It is titled, "I left my shopping cart in the parking lot for the first time ever, and it felt great. So I got to the store today with my son and saw an open space. Sweet. I pull through, I go to pull in and see that some idiot took up 4 parking spaces and was not visible from the laneway. So then I had to back out of the space since I couldn't fit in and ended up parking next to him. I shook my head and grumbled about it and went in to do my shopping. When I got back to my car, I noticed that 2 other people had piled their carts around this idiot's car. One in front and one in the back. I've literally never once in my life left my cart in the parking lot since I'm not an animal, but it only took a few seconds for me to know what I had to do here. I put my cart next to the driver's side door of this guy's car and it felt great. Hopefully more people kept up the pay it forward cart pile after me. Screw you, people who take 4 parking spaces. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.